post the camera. He hung out long enough for me to get the post ready, and as soon as the camera went live, he hopped off. You can see he's still in the hallway. All right, which that's not what I'm here to do, right? What I'm here for is the Essential Ernest Holmes. So I finally got smart, and because my bookmarks tend to live in my books. See what I did? Well, you can't see it. One, it's probably too small, and two, because I have terrible handwriting, and two, it's backwards. So I went into my homework and wrote down all of the weeks and wrote down what the readings for the homework, because I'm going to read chapter 5 today, and the homework doesn't stop there. It goes about another 10 pages into chapter 6. So, just so you know, chapter 5 is not, it starts on the beginning of chapter 5, but it does not end in chapter 5. So, I will get that done on Saturday and then post it up just for you to listen to the rest of it if that's what you want to do. So, here we are. Essential Ernest Holmes. Let's do just that housekeeping. I always do the housekeeping really quickly at the beginning so that I don't forget to do it at the end. And usually by the end, I'm tired and just want to get off. So, because, I love it, don't get me wrong, but it does take a toll on my voice. So, but I have eaten lunch, I've taken my meds, and filled up my water bottle, and remembered to bring it. So, I also have one of my dry mouth lozenges, just in case, because if you heard that one time that my throat dried out and I started coughing, I'm sorry about that. So, okay. All the housekeeping is me reminding you that we are Creative Life Spiritual Center. Website is creativelife.org. Constant contact email, info@creativelife.org. Each one email a week tells you what's going on for the week, the month, and the hot links are hot. So, quick here now means it. It is also blind CC. So, nobody will see your email. You won't end up on anybody else's email list because of us. The only reason you would get more than one is if something unusual happens, which, because we live in the Gulf Coast, and not only is it hurricane season, it is peak hurricane season, at least until the beginning of October. And hurricane season officially ends at the end of November, so, here we are. It's usually, weather related. So, not really anything that, we're not going to flood your inbox, unlike, the ocean might flood us. Hurricane might flood us, because we've been there, done that. Yeah. Okay. So, there were words. What were the words? Oh, yeah. The other thing is the social media. I'm obviously doing this on social media. So, one of the ways that you can support the center is by engaging with our social media. Go like, subscribe, follow, based on which platform you're on, and then engage with the individual post by reacting to the post, commenting on the post, sharing the post. It bumps us in the algorithms, more people see our stuff. So, free and easy way you can support the center is by getting our stuff in front of more people. We are Creative Life Spiritual Center or Creative Life Spark, and I am the running Reverian across the social medias that I am on. So, there is that. Okay. Now, let's talk about the Essential Ernest Holmes. So, apparently, now this is according to Jesse, who edited the book, okay? There was a 3-book deal with, I think he said Putnam and Archer. I don't know. Oh, Tarcher. I think it's Tarcher. Where they went to 3 different people and said, hey, can you pull together some Ernest Holmes work? There's one which is called The Love and Law, which it was done by Dr. Marilyn Leo. There's another one, which name I do not remember, by Dr. Reverend Kathy Hearn. And then Jesse got the pleasure of doing the last one. I think it was the last one. I think it was literally the 3rd one. And he is also Dr. Reverend, but, on CSC we don't stand on titles, which is why when I did an event where I had to introduce myself, the moderator actually went and looked my title up for me just to make sure I got it right. Because I am an assistant minister. So, so he got to do, so all 3 of these books were where they sat down with all of Ernest Holmes' works, all of them, the textbooks, the textbook that he wrote, all the other books, the at-home study course, all of his magazine writings, all of the class lectures, all of it. And they pulled it together in themes. So, like I said, with Marilyn Leo's book is called The Love and Law, Law and Love and Law. His is called The Essential Ernest Holmes, because that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to give you an excellent overview of kind of what Ernest was thinking, what his philosophy actually is. So, if you're I don't recommend people start with a textbook, because it is what it sounds like. It is a textbook. It can be dry at times. I generally would recommend people start with this thing called You. However, this is a really good one. And I'm going to say, if you want to kind of get an idea of who Ernest was, what his thinking was, this is an excellent book to do. The Essential Ernest Holmes. I think Jesse did a bang-up job of putting this together. Now, today, we are moving into part 2, which is called The Central Flame. And I'm going to remind you, he always starts these out with a little bit of the poetry from The Voice Celestial, which, if you have not read, it's an epic poem, but it tells you what Ernest believes in poetry form. It's absolutely beautiful. It was I believe it was the last thing Ernest worked on. He and his brother Fenwick sat down and wrote this epic poem, and it is absolutely beautiful. I did read it. It is available on the Ernest, or it's available. I know it's available on my on the Running Rev Ryan channel in full chapters, and I believe it's almost all on the Creative Life YouTube channel. I need to go back because I think I may be missing a chapter or two. I really need to get that finished. So, so that is that. Okay, but before we get into chapter 5, which is the meeting place of science and religion, there is a little bit of an intro into part 2 from William D. Hornaday. And if you do not know who William D. Hornaday is, he was one of Ernest's friends, and 2. Sometimes I get his. This is a Jesse question. Sometimes I get his contemporaries, and his. I think Reginald Armour was one of his mentees. I think Hornaday was one of his contemporaries, and William Hornaday is one of the people who helped Ernest organize science of this religious science into what it is. He may have been the one who kept poking Ernest, going, "We need an organization." So I believe that is true. I'm not entirely sure. So please double check me on that fact. Don't quote me on that fact, because I'm not absolutely positive. Relatively certain though. So, all right. So this is from William D. Hornaday, The Inner Light. I had prepared a sermon based on something Ernest had said over lunch one day. When the mood was on him, Ernest was capable of platform rhetoric across a cottage cheese salad. After lunch, I wrote down what I could remember in my notebook. It went like this. In this amazing century, bursting away from so much that was slow-paced and orderly in the past, the breakthrough in the physical sciences robbed many people of cherished religious concepts and left them forlorn. But humanity is, or are, religious beings. And there are thousands who are seeking a philosophy which can be reconciled to their own expanding awareness of the universe. A faith that will square with the century. Can you imagine a Nobel Prize winner holding still for an hour's talk on original sin? He demanded. No. People want the religion that Jesus brought into the world. If we can get back to it through all the ecclesiastical forms, people who have left their churches to follow the mechanic. Sometimes he makes up words. Okay. The mechanicists have lost more than they can afford to lose. They are going to keep looking until they find a religion they can test and prove out and depend on. Okay. You know what? I I really do agree with Ernest. Science did strip away a lot of the physical science robbed many people of cherished religious concept and left them forlorn. But I also agree with Ernest that people want the religion that Jesus brought into the world. So I would also recommend another one of Ernest Holmes' books. Highly recommend it. One of Ernest Holmes' books called The Hidden Power of the Bible. And I recommend it for two reasons. One, I am currently reading it. That's my morning. If you catch me in the morning, that's the book I'm reading in the mornings. But you're only getting 15 minutes here. You're going to get an entire chapter here. But The Hidden Power of the Bible used to be called, when it was originally first published, it was called the Bible in Light of Religious Science. And that is what Ernest does. Ernest has spent a bulk of the book, and I'm just over halfway through it, talking about the teachings of Jesus. So that is the kind of Christian that Ernest was. Ernest looked at the teachings of Jesus and went, let's do that. Let's follow what Jesus actually taught. Let's not, not what all of the various Christian sects are doing with with him, because a lot of them talk more about Jesus than they do what he did. And they don't necessarily encourage us to do what Jesus did. And Ernest was like, nope, let's not do that. We're going to go back and see what Jesus did. Now, he also read a whole lot of other people and touched on a whole lot of other, faith traditions. Like, he believed that there were so many other amazing teachers out there and so much other sacred literature. He didn't restrict himself just to the teachings of Jesus, but he did lean heavily into it. It was the faith that he was raised in, though. So and he'll tell you that. In fact, I think he does fairly regularly in his work. So, all right. So let's get on with. This is chapter 5 of the Essential Ernest Holmes, the meeting place of science and religion. And again, if you are doing this for week 5 in the homework, week 5 in the homework, this actually goes to page 113, and I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to stop at the end of this chapter. So we are going to do the selection from the Voice Celestial. The Fairer. Before me stretched this vast and crystal sea, between the shores of time and of eternity. Down to the bridge that spanned the gulf I saw the saints and sages, keepers of the law, lead bands of pilgrims out of every clime, freed from the burdens of freed from the burdened slavery of time. Across the sands the master highways ran, thronged by the souls who formed the caravan. And everywhere, from south and north, from west and east, the pilgrims crossed the crest of mountains sloping to the sea, and on they came, the multitudes who, from the dawn of human day, had through the troubled ages in serried ranks been led by ancient sages, who marched beneath the banner Lord of Kings, and all of whom bore gifts and offerings, to place upon an altar which was set beside the sea, where earth and heaven met. It was permitted for me to view the past and prove as fact what I believed at last. Space turned to minute form in astral lights, and from afar beyond the towering heights, borne on the winds that whirl in space from the eternal dwelling place. As thunder rolls when lightning speaks aloud, I heard a great voice crying through a cloud. The tabernacle of God is with men, and God itself shall dwell with them. And it shall wipe away all the tears from eyes, and that weep and pain shall be no more. Not one shall sorrow, for death no more shall be. I am beginning and the end, and they who turn their heart and thought to me shall never thirst, but ever be my child. Then I could clearly see the altar of the ages, object of devoted love of untold millions of the human race, who rendered worship in this sacred place. Behind the altar, a rainbowed arc of light, I saw a priest arrayed in silver white. Melchizedek, eternal priest and king of righteousness and peace, outrivaling all priests of all the altars of the earth, who could not die, nor had he second birth, but wore the mitre placed upon his brow by life and not by law, and took the vow of fealty to God from all the saints and sages, as he had done throughout the endless ages. Not Jesus only, but every seer to wait before the shrine had been initiated. Of the order of Melchizedek, this master sage and priest, whose genesis is hid among the stars, whence he acquired the teleos measurements which inspired the temples and the pyramids that show in human frames and in a flake of snow. The first appeared great Rama to my view, with poets and singers in his retinue, who joined in Vedic hymns of the creation, the first of all the faiths of correlation, of people with God, and I beheld the morn on blazing light where Eastern faiths were born. Now, here's the brief reminder that at the end of each section where he ends, he does put a little number, and then you can go to the back to notes, and he will tell you exactly, Jesse will tell you exactly where he got each part of this. I'm pretty sure he even gives page numbers. Yep, he gives page numbers. So if you want to know where that was, because he mentioned Rama in the Vedic. So as I said, Ernest read a whole lot of sacred literature, including a lot of Eastern literature. He read a lot of the Hindu, like the Hindu Vedas. So he was very familiar with Sri Aurobindo and the Life Divine, which is a fascinating read. I might, as I might say, because I can't tell you that I've read the whole thing, but I've read a lot of it. I did thoroughly enjoy the Upanishads. All right, so moving into the reading. Now, remember that if you're reading this, anything in the dark, that's Jesse. Jesse telling you about what he's about to tell you, what Ernest is about to tell you. So, the science of mind is a science. Ernest maintained that in the efficacy of prayer can be proven. The intuitive sense in nature recognizes only oneness. Humans, having finely honed self-awareness, appear to be both the only earthly species capable of using this sense to its fullest degree, and the only ones capable of denying that it even exists. Ernest here suggests that we take a lesson from the natural world in an oft-requested reprint of a 1947 article from the Science of Mind magazine. And if you don't have the Science of Mind magazine from 1947, you can go to the Science of Mind archives and look it up. So, all right. Did you ever set a hen? If so, you know that you put eggs under her or put her on top of the eggs. She sets there for 21 days. Then the eggs hatch out. What caused the first hen to set on the first egg? It evidently was not an accumulation of previous experiences which she had or something she had consciously thought out. She had never figured that it takes exactly 21 days to do the job. Hens do not live by calendars or know the difference between Monday and Friday. Some intuitional sense caused her to lay the eggs and sit on them and to know what to do with the chickens when they hatched. What is this unconscious direction moving intuitively? It is the universal intelligence which operates everywhere. Calmly, placidly, she sets, never leaving her nest long enough for the eggs to get cold, turning them over every day so the chickens will develop normally. Instinctive omniscience is the only answer. The hen never doubts, never questions, never argues, apparently does not do any complaining. There she sets, and the eggs will hatch because the hen has followed the law of her instinct. I didn't know you had to turn the eggs over. That's really interesting. I just learned something. It is interesting to note that the hen does not try to concentrate or will anything into being. We hear so much about the development of will and the power of concentration. The hen can neither read nor write, and she has never studied philosophy, knows nothing about modern psychology or ancient mysticism. No one has ever heard of a hen cackling about its sins or squawking to high heaven to save its soul. It appears that she never had a guilt complex. The hen has not even studied how to become spiritual. She does not argue whether she has been reincarnated 40 times and might have been 40 more if someone had not wanted fried eggs for breakfast. The hen sets on her eggs for 21 days and a brood of chickens is hatched. She is not a philosopher. She is not a spiritual genius. She is not even a scientist or a mathematician. She never heard of heaven or hell, but she knows how to set. There's a philosopher out there, and I forget who it is, who said how much better off would humanity be if they'd never heard of heaven and hell. And when I heard that, I went, oh, because, I agree with the philosopher. Okay, back to the hen. She keeps one idea warm for 21 days without ever doubting that the warmth of her body penetrating the eggs will cause them to hatch. Who is there among us who can contemplate one idea for 21 days, keeping it warm, alive, awake, unaware, through an inward feeling which broods over its own expectations? Okay. That's just a really good. Okay. Now I understand why he's using the hen, because I know next to nothing about chickens. The hen doesn't know whether she is a sinner or a savior, whether she is wise or unwise. You see, the hen has not yet developed an intellect through which she can deny the divine offering or refuse to accept the creative power of her own instinctive urge. Well, don't we wish to be we don't wish to be hens. Well, we don't wish to be hens. We act more like geese. Okay. Let's follow this one. The process of evolution has given us an intellect which makes it possible for us to deny what God has given. It did not do this, however, at the expense of the creative faculties within us. They are still there, ready to operate just as they do in the hen. We have arrived at the place in our evolution where we can deny our good, even though it is always there to be accepted. We are arguing as to whether or not we are good enough. We are wondering if we know how to concentrate. Have we the spiritual enlightenment? We have covered up our instinctive omniscience through confusion, denials, and negations. They could not enter because of their unbelief. That's a quote from the Bible, by the way. Where exactly? Don't ask me, but it is, because I remember reading it somewhat recently, actually. We think we have to follow what Plato said, or Socrates, or Emerson, or some other great, good, and wise person whose genius lay in the fact that they followed their instinctive omniscience. We wonder what system of thought is right and which is wrong, and argue until confusion becomes chaos, and even hope is dragged in the dust of uncertainty. We'd better get up and shake off the dust and get back to these eggs. After all, the hen is wise. 4. God's will and God's nature must be identical. Law is law and works like it, he tells us. The law we are discussing is simply a law of nature, a force of nature. It happens to be a mental force and an intelligent and creative one, like electricity, which either lights our house or cooks our food, or will electrocute us if we use it incorrectly. Science and religion meet in the territory of the mind. Psychoanalysis, then in its infancy, lays bare the interior world, while spirituality can transform what's found there. The groundbreaking article that follows, published in 1938, the same year as the revised textbook, foreshadows modern therapeutic techniques and holistic psychology. Psychoanalysis means an analysis of the psyche, and the psyche means the subjective part of us. That repository where is gathered the sum total of all the experiences we have had, plus the experiences the world has had, transmitted from one generation to another of human experience. Therefore, it goes without saying that this subconscious retention, this subjective repository of thought, impulses, and desire towards manifestation is very much more elaborate and much more vital and powerful than the intellect. That is why it is that the emotions are stronger than the intellect. You often hear, like, your emotions ran away with you, but you've never heard your intellect has run away with you. Interesting, right? Think about it. All right. There is a tremendous drive and urge to express, and before humanity had a consciousness, that is, before the intellect said certain things are right and certain things are wrong, they did not care what they did. They were half animal and half human. And they went out and killed whatever was in sight, but they did not feel badly about it. Okay, I will also mention that when they killed whatever in sight, they didn't waste it. Which, animals don't waste their kills. They don't kill unnecessarily, and they don't waste their kills. So, before we got all intellectual, we didn't either. And now that we're all intellectual, we're really good at wasting people's lives. Sorry. Okay. Try not to get on a soapbox there. They developed in the logical processes of evolution a consciousness, an idea of right and wrong. The emotional urge towards self-expression was still there, but they developed something that sat on top of it, as it were, and the intellect and the will came into conflict with the emotional reactions of the ages. Okay. What is it? Okay. They still desired to do certain things, but something in them said it would not be best. We might desire to do something today that is destructive as an emotional impulse, but when we stop and think about it, we know that it is not best. The intellect is given to us in our evolution that we may discriminate and no longer be led by blind emotion, because so long as the world was led by blind emotion, there was no civilization. And if the world ever returns to be led by blind emotion as we now understand it, it will disappear. Okay. Ugh. I'm going to tell you that I'm struggling with this, and I'm struggling with this because my undergraduate degree is in anthropology, specifically archaeology. And he's a little bit wrong here. He's a little bit wrong. Not a whole lot wrong, but a little bit wrong. I don't know when humanity became conscious. I know when we stood up. Okay, and there's a difference there. I don't know when we became self-aware. Let's put it that way. I'm not even sure that's the right word. I don't know when our consciousness separated from our subconscious, when we became more run by our consciousness than our subconscious. I don't know that. But I do know that we were not run by our emotions, even in early civilization, in the earliest evidences of civilization. He makes it sound like that if we... Let me put it to you this way. What I've noticed is that civilization didn't make us a whole lot better. And to some degree, it made us a whole lot worse. So I admit right here I'm struggling because what he knows about humanity's development is very, 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 very thin. And so he's not exactly right. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying the veneer is very thin and I could poke holes in it all day. So I'm just so you know, I'm struggling right here, and that is why. Okay? Anybody in the field of psychology and anthropology probably could easily have a problem with this. I'm not saying that they will, but that's what I'm struggling with right now. Because when he goes, that last sentence, I just can't deal with that last sentence. If the world ever returns to be led by blind emotion, as we now understand, it will. Now, I agree with him about that, but yeah, I disagree with him that civilization was ever run by blind emotion. Okay. Cool. All right. I don't disagree with Ernest often, but I do have a bone to pick with him here. But I'm gonna set it down. We're gonna move on. Okay. But there is a conflict between the creative emotional part of us and the intellect, the will, the reflective part of us. And all neurosis or psychosis is a result of this conflict. Again, he's wrong. Most neurosis is probably caused by that. Some of it's chemical. So, you know, I'm moving on. It is a result, as Jesse did point out, psychology was in its infancy when this was being written. So, okay, that's why I'm going, he's wrong. He's not entirely wrong. He's just not entirely right. So, we've come a long way, baby. And yeah, I know that was a tagline from a cigarette commercial when I was a child. So, it is the result of a mental state where the emotion is trying to go one way and the intellect another. Now, that is does factor into a large bit of neurosis. Not all of it, but a large degree of it, yes. The feeling drive is in one direction and the reflective drive is in another. It seems a strange thing that this should happen when humanity evolved it to a place where they began to be civilized. But it is a logical thing because they had not yet learned this tremendous creative force within them. I'm not sure that we still have, but all right. When the emotion comes into conflict with the will, the emotions always win. But the will not permitting the emotions a proper outlet, they come up in a different channel and are not easily recognized. Okay. Okay. And he's extremely right about that. If your emotions do not have a proper outlet, they will come out sideways. And frequently when that happens, it is very destructive. It is very hard on the people in your lives when your emotions are not regulated. Natural forces will find an outlet. Consequently, in the dictionary of the libido, as defined as an emotional craving for self-expression, back of all things, the repression of which leads to psychoneurosis. That is, to psychic disturbances or morbid fears resulting in nervous breakdown. We will say. Resulting in nervous breakdown, we will say. The nerves of themselves do not break down. They are merely the cohesive medium between the mental or emotional action and the physical or objective reaction. For instance, modern medical people now are classifying many heart inactions as hypertensions, extreme nervous tension. But extreme nervous tension is the result of extreme mental and emotional tension. Okay, what he just said is that stress can cause high blood pressure. He's right. It can. It's only one of the things that causes high blood pressure, but stress can cause high blood pressure. I know, I'm a poster child for it. Psychoanalysis is the most subtle and elusive thing on earth, and only years of careful experience would equip a person with the mental ability, the intellectual patience, and the human understanding to properly analyze. Most people practicing in this field do not understand the field well enough to practice it successfully, but of itself it is scientific. That was rude. That was extremely rude. Ernest. I'm going to remind you, psychoanalysis was in its infancy when this book was written, but I still think that was rude. All right. It has evolved the most elaborate methods of uncovering the inhibited, repressed emotional reactions, the result of an intensive reality in the universe. Its problem is to lay bare, to cause the consciousness to see the reason for the neurosis, and to, by being self-seen, be healed. Okay. Yeah, he's not wrong there. That's pretty much what the point is. Because once you know what the problem is, then you can fix the problem. Unfortunately, in the evolution of this idea, a large number of its exponents, among whom were Freud and Adler, believed in a materialistic philosophy. They knew the mechanics of the thing, they understood the way the engine ran and how to repair it, but they did not understand how to really heal the soul of the one who is suffering. Jung says that sum total of all human belief affects each one of us very definitely. We call it race suggestion. It means the sum total of human thought. These men worked out the mechanics of this thing, but they did not see the necessity of spiritualizing the operation. Okay. I apologize to you. I am fighting my way through this because this is really hard for me. Because I can see that this was written over 100 years ago, and the science has come a long way. The science has come a whole long way. However, the argument that he is making is interesting because it is the same conclusion I came to in medical anthropology. Because when I was in medical anthropology, I looked at they contrasted the Eastern system of healing versus the Western medicine. Notice how I said that differently. Because in Western medicine, they treat the body. They treat the symptoms. In Eastern medicine, they treat the body, the mind, and the soul. So they do all three. To effect true healing, and that's what Ernest is about to talk about, he's just going to use a wild term for it, you have to treat all three. So, let's get back to Ernest. Now, what do we mean by spiritualizing? Exactly what the word implies. Humanity, psychologically, is the result of all the mental actions and reactions that have gone before. But they are more than that. And that these gentlemen, Jung, Adler, and Freud, did not see, well, I guess Freud and Adler, because he said Jung had seen it. Jung had seen it, I think. Gradually, others are seeing it. But most of the early workers in the field of analytical psychology did not see it because their philosophy was one of materialism. They did not believe in the immortality of the soul, the reality of the spirit, but they understood the mechanistic reactions of the mind. From them, we get the Watterson theory of behavioralism, which has already been discredited, which is good because I've never heard of it, so that means that they're not teaching it anymore. And the idea of predetermination in psychology, which means we are all automatically reacting to thought impulse. We cannot help it. As evidence of the fact that humanity is not really a bunch of reactions, that determinism is a false philosophy, we have this testimony from Jung, that after 35 years of experience and analysis, he had never yet known of one single permanent healing of our neurosis without a restoration of faith. Okay, and that's what I said. In the Eastern models, they know that to effect true healing, you have to work the body, the mind, and the soul. When we say the restoration of faith, it doesn't have to be religion, because frequently religion is what got us in the trouble in the first place. But that is my opinion. Back to Ernest. Okay. Yeah. After years of work in analytical psychology and psychiatry, Dr. Link had written a book which he calls Back to Religion. Why? Because a person's life is incomplete unless they add the engineer to the engine, unless they add the perceiver to the thing perceived, the artist to the art, a creator to creation. This is the office of religion. A nation may attempt to stamp out religion. It may attempt to create a religion founded on the ideology of a false psychology of nationalism. Read white Christian nationalism right now. But it is just as destined to fail as 2 and 2 are destined never to make anything but 4. Back of all psychological urges, which are real, vital, and powerful, there is a culminating urge. Right, Ernest? Tell me what the culminating urge is. It is an echo of the understanding that we are immortal beings, that we are eternal beings, that we are everlasting, that we are co-partners with an infinite intelligence and will, and purposiveness and personalness in the universe. So unqualifiedly, Jung says, there is no healing of neurosis unless there is a restoration of faith. In our work, we start with the restoration of faith. Okay? We start where analysis leaves off. Oh, no, we start where the analyst leaves off. After they have done all they can do. We know that there is such a thing as spiritualization of consciousness, and that in such a degree as this spiritualization of consciousness takes place, automatically the neurosis dissolves into its native nothingness. Does not the greater contain the lesser? Of course it does. The larger a person's concept is, the more it looks around the smaller concepts they may entertain. And if a person is conscious of the immortality and the eternality of their own soul, unless they include this lesser evolution and revolution and convolution into the larger experience, it is inevitable that one of two things will happen. They will become a materialist and an agnostic, and as such a disgruntled individual. Or if they still retain the finer sensibilities and urges which instinctively seek to elevate their thought to cosmic comprehension, they will so destroy temporarily these upper convolutions of thought that they will become a neurotic. That is what is happening in the world today. There were not so many neuroses when people were religious. I'm not sure I agree with him there, but all right, let's move on. Spiritual emotion is just as real as any other emotion, and it is just as necessary that it shall find an outlet, and that is what the religious life does. All neurosis is a thing of fear and lack. All neurosis is a thing of fear and a lack of cooperative understanding, and back of that is a lack of spiritual perception, a lack of religious conviction. Ernest is making me crazy right now. And again, this was written in 1938. This is almost 100 years ago. So 88 years ago, if we do the math. Because it's currently 2026, depending on when you're watching this. I'm going to bite my tongue and keep going. Modern civilization is seeking the outlet of its new emotional trends, be they economic or political or whatever one chooses to call them. They are all psychological at their base, and all psychology at its base is a result of something that is higher, that is spiritual. Psychology is the mental action and reactions of the human mind, always colored by the religious or spiritual perception. Let each person have a spiritual outlet and uplift, and perhaps finally the day will come when our stupidity will dim as the I can say that word. Effulgent rays of that penetrating and mystic divine fire enter our consciousness. Then we shall find that we, like the wayfarers ascending a mountain, we are like the wayfarers ascending a mountain. We know the vista is there. We know that the eye may view. We know that there the eye may view the world as one vast plain and one boundless reach of sky, but not being able to look around the side of the mountain, it is only when we get to the top that we see things as they really are. Then we shall sense the representation in us of that divine urge which compels all evolution, all expansion, and all links our own soul to that of the oversoul of the universe. Okay. Oh. All right. I just needed a moment. Thank God we are done with that, and we are going to move on to something else, because that made me absolutely crazy to read it. Hoy. The interesting thing is because, as I said, this article was written in 1930. That article that I was reading from was written in 1938. We've come a long way. We have come a very long way. We know a lot more. And yet, he was still on one level right. So, while being very messy on several other levels. I'm glad Young had come around by the time that Ernest was seriously writing, because in 2026, we still do not know where consciousness is. We cannot define it. We cannot locate it. We do not know where it exists, because it isn't. Like, we can't locate it in the body. It's not in the brain. It's not in the body. And yet it is. See what I'm saying? So right now, what he's saying, while it is making me crazy, somebody watching this probably even 10 years from now is going to think that I'm crazy because I'm so mad about this. Because we will have learned so much more. All right. And moving on. Science wonders how everything came into being in the first place, while religion simply answers God made it. Ernest takes the matter further, resolving the creation versus evolution debate by positing a never-ending creation consisting of involved thought and evolved form. Evolution is the passing of thought into manifestation. To put it another way, all is infinite being and all is eternally becoming. Infinite being is infinite knowingness. As the result of this infinite knowingness, there is an infinite becomingness or creation. The infinite knowingness produces what is called involution through the self-contemplation of spirit. As the result of this contemplation, this word of the Bible, creation is made manifest. This is evolution. Evolution is the process, the way, the time, and the experience that transpires as thought or intelligence or idea or contemplation passes from the abstract being into concrete expression. Consequently, evolution is an effect of intelligence and not the cause of it. Evolution is not creating intelligence. Intelligence is projecting evolution. Okay. Evolution is the process. And yeah, okay. The original cause of the universe, according to the Bible, was a thought in the mind of God. Everything that exists was first an idea, and it is the nature of ideas to take form. Some people say that they believe this is because it is in the Bible. To others, it appears as a logical necessity to account for things as they are. Many cosmogonists and astronomers who seek to determine the nature of the universe as a whole feel that at one time, about 4 billion years ago, there was a somewhat quiescent mass of tightly compressed particles, those particles out of which atoms are built. Then something happened. And within a very short time, a very explosive time, physical creation began and is still continuing according to inherent pattern, which would have had to exist prior to that original explosive moment. God said, mind thought, is there a difference? There was a cause and there was an effect. And that original causative factor did not cease to be, but is active, causation still creating effects. It is without beginning and without end. Pure mind knows no limitations. Astronomer Gustav Stromberg has written much on this subject and has said that when the physical world of space, time, and energy was yet unborn, something far more important existed. This was mind, cosmic mind or world soul, which was and is the source of all things physical, as well as the ultimate origins of our minds. Ugh. Despite the colossal advances of scientific learning since their publication, these next two magazine articles remain as relevant today as when published. The first is a 1931 baccalaureate lecture to graduates of the major course, as it was then called, at the Institute of Religious Science, and stresses cooperation with all of the healing arts and sciences. The second, 16 years later, discusses the body-mind relationship. Okay, let's get on with this. You saw how crazy he made me in 1938, so let's see what he does to me from 1931. Viewing religious science from its broadest meaning, we shall think of it as one of the many attempts now being made throughout the world to arrive at a more satisfactory understanding of life. Okay. It is an attempt to solve some of the enigmas of human existence. It is a seeking to solve some of the great mysteries of being, to find a solution which will give a greater hope and certainty to those who search after the truth. The practice of religious science is quite different from the popular concept of it. Those who are unfamiliar with this practice often misunderstand and misinterpret its meanings. It is a popular belief that those who practice the science are a class of people who declare that everything is perfect, when, as a matter of fact, everything in the objective experience of the race is not perfect, and indeed is far from being perfect. This popular idea of the practice of science, spiritual science, is entirely a misconception. A religious scientist is not one who assures themselves that wrong is right, that good is evil, that limitation is freedom, that bondage is liberty, and that sickness is health. They do not claim that our objective experience is an illusion, but they do make this claim, that behind the phenomena of human and material existence, behind the slow and persistent process of evolution, there is, as Emerson stated, one mind common to all people. He claims that this mind is perfect and that he has access to this mind. Okay. Humanity is an inlet to this mind, not through choice, but by reason of their nature, not through desire, but by necessity. Humanity is an immortal being, not because they earn immortality, paying for a heavenly place through a lifetime of self-denial. They are immortal because they are made of immortal stuff. All people are immortal, not because they choose to be or because they believe in some particular doctrine, not because they are Christians, Jews, or pagans, but because they are divine. Humanity is divinity wearing a mask. That which has gained self-consciousness must progressively be more and more conscious of itself. We are on the pathway of an endless expansion. We are unfolding into the infinite. The science which you are to practice is based on the theory that there is a universal mind and an eternal spirit from which all things spring. The Spirit is the creator and sustainer of all that is. You have immediate access to this divine mind, this universal principle, this creative power. Humanity has access to the great whole and draws as much power from this source as they are capable of intelligently using. Humanity is not the power. They are the avenue through which the power flows. Your religious outlook is to be a universal one. Otherwise, dogmatism, creedal ceremony, and superstition creep in. When this happens, people look for prayers, which other people have prayed to make them whole. They look in vain. The thought of humanity's relationship to God should be direct, dynamic. Every person's mind is an inlet to the divine. There is a tolerance in this concept and inclusion. The infinite is all-inclusive, all-embracing, all-comprehending. You will work in harmony with all religious beliefs, since all seek in their different ways the final and ultimate cause. God, to whom we have given the name of love or Heavenly Father, the one who understands this will be tolerant, kind, sympathetic. They feel that back of every person's approach to the Spirit, there is a sincere desire to reunite with the principle from which all people spring. Your attitude towards all religious forms of worship shall be one of unity. Argue with no person, then, over their religious convictions, but let each worship in their own way. Each shall draw the picture of divinity on their own canvas with their own brush, blending their colors from the inner workings of their spiritual estate. That is an absolutely beautiful way to say that. Oh my God! Let me read that again because it's so amazing. Each shall draw the picture of divinity on their own canvas with their own brush, blending their colors from the inner working of their own spiritual state. All faith is good. Never rob one of their faith unless you can give them a better one. Your relationship to the medical fraternity should be one of the same character. You will find those who are willing and ready to cooperate with you in your endeavor to relieve suffering. You will find others who will scoff at your attempts. But no person can hurt you unless your mind admits the hurt. You are doctors to the mind, wise spiritual counselors. You work in this field your work in this field is as legitimate as that of any physician or surgeon. Let the dignity of your profession be an outstanding attribute of your work. You have much to offer the medical world. Offer it in the spirit of cooperation. The time will come when the healing power of thought will be better understood and more universally sought after. Already the signs of this day are approaching when many physicians are awaiting your cooperation. If there are those who deny you the privilege of such cooperation, be not disturbed. There is still some misunderstanding which will disappear with time. The time will come when the healing agency of spiritual thought force will be taught in all our schools, but we need not wait for that time. Meanwhile, give those who come to you such help as you have to give. The healing power of the spiritual thought is based upon a principle which is transcendent of any psychological or physiological principle, now being taught in our schools and universities. Your ability to relieve suffering depends upon your ability to see, sense, and feel the pure spirit in humanity. As the spirit heals the mind automatically reacts to the body. Okay. The healing power of the spiritual thought is greater than mental suggestion, more than willpower, and transcends a mere mental determination. It is mental penetration into that principle which is higher than the mind, the principle of spirit, which principle must be discerned through the mind. You will succeed in many cases, and you will fail in many. Where you succeed, you will rejoice. Where you fail, you should not grieve, because you have done your best, and that is all any person can do. Your work is in the realm of the mind. Leave all objective forms of healing to those who practice objectively and cooperate with all who will cooperate with you. The principle which you teach is accessible to all. It is God, the living Spirit, Almighty. The spiritual evolution of people's minds has not yet reached that stage where the average person senses this divine presence in its fullness. You will do the best you can, and with God be the rest. There should be a flexibility and a willingness on your part to cooperate, but there should also be a determination to prove your principle. This determination is ever growing. It is rooted deep in spiritual soil. Its branches are forever spreading, and the fruit of this knowledge is forever falling into the lap of them who know. You will unite with the philosophic mind insofar as it unites with you. True philosophy is a gift of all ages to our age. You may know this, that in the pursuance of your philosophical thought, you keep company with the best the world has to offer. You will find in popular philosophy much that is confusing. The reason being that much of our popular philosophy does not start with the premise that there is and must be a unitary wholeness running through everything. The phenomena of human existence can be explained on no other basis. You will read every person's philosophy, reserving for yourself the prerogative of choice, knowing that any philosophy based on a unitary wholeness has the elements of truth. No philosophy is perfect. Your own is not. Everything is evolving, growing, and expanding. In the field of practical psychology, you will perhaps find a greater unity, but you will find no unity whatsoever in a materialistic psychology. The world of psychology will someday, I believe, realize what the late William James meant when he said, "The psychology of tomorrow will be metaphysics." But for your own enlightenment, I can assure you of this, that including all of the psychologists of the world, not one of them can intelligently explain their own science without first accepting the premise upon which your philosophy is built. So feel no sense of chagrin if the psychologist passes you by. Love them just the same and cooperate them whenever they allow you to do so. ... It ends on an ellipsis, that's all I'm saying. We shall never arrive at the truth through the denial of any fact. There is no reason why you should not cooperate with all classes of people. Never be arrogant. Arrogance is always ignorance. All people are of the same spirit. Heaven has no favorites. You shall find a deep and a growing sympathy with humanity, a knowledge that the divinity of the human must be made manifest through the humanity of the people. Do not fall under the illusion that there are external practices which can hasten spiritual perceptions. Do not fall into the error of thinking that there are those who can deliver to you a key of knowledge. Do not chase spiritual, mental, or psychological rainbows. The pot of gold is in the imagination of the person who seeks the end of the rainbow. Salvation will never be found to be external to the mind seeking it. Do not fall under the belief that if one is to excel in spiritual things, they must renounce everything that is called physical. There are those who would separate life from living. Do not make this mistake. Take the time to weed out unbelief. Find the world to be good. See every person as an evolving soul. Let your mind be tempered with that human wisdom which rejects the lie, which separates the wheat from the chaff, but in all kindness, sympathy, and compassion. Your system of thought does not deny the merit of human endeavor or intellectual attainment. It does affirm the supremacy of spirit. It is the spirit which creates and sustains all. The spirit is projecting itself through humanity, coming to greater fruition through it, operating directly in their mind. There comes with this belief a power, a peace, and a poise, as one senses their relationship to this all-sustaining good and beauty which unites everything into one stupendous wholeness. Search your own mind. Be true to your own thought. Penetrate more deeply into your own consciousness. In the silence of your own soul, you meet the eternal and creative center of all. Carrying this torch of truth and reason, brought down through the ages and now handed to you, advance on the chaos of unbelief and prove your faith by your works. So shall the heart of humanity, seeing thy flight, find out the way again there in the night. We are hearing a great deal about psychosomatics, which means the relationship between the body and the mind. It is thought probably that a large percentage of physical ailments have their basis in our subconscious thought. We might take it for granted that there is an inner causative mind deeper than the intellect. There is a reservoir of thoughts and feelings which is called the subconscious, unconscious, or subjective. It seems to be the creative medium through which thought and feeling work, both in our bodies and, we believe, on our environment. The sum total of everything that is in there constitutes the psychosomatic relationship that is the body-mind relationship, thus determining to a very great degree what our physical health shall be. Patterns of thought are laid down in the subconscious which automatically repeat themselves, and unless they are changed, they will go on and on with a dreary sort of monotony. Okay. This shows that this field of mind is a neutral medium. While it is creative, it is not self-directive. There is nothing in the subconscious which has not been put there. It is a creative medium with no particular purpose of its own. We can learn consciously, whether it be arithmetic, philosophy, or how to drive an automobile. Gradually, what we learn becomes an unconscious reaction because the thought pattern has fallen into a field which repeats itself without effort. In dealing with the unconscious, subconscious, or subjective, we are not dealing with a mind itself, rather with a mirror reflecting the images cast into it and reflecting them mathematically and mechanically. If this were not so, the whole field of psychosomatics, that branch of psychology which deals with the effect of the mind on the body, would be without meaning. The very word psychosomatic means the relationship between this inner psyche, or subconscious field of mind, and the physical body. There is a mind principle within us which knows how to, but does not know that it is doing. Okay, nope, sorry, hang on. I got myself caught up in there. Let me try that again. There is a mind principle within us which knows how to do, but does not know that it is doing, which works intelligently, but not consciously, automatically, but never spontaneously, receiving thought patterns, but never with any selectivity, always reflecting them back, but never knowing that it is doing so. We could not call this a mind in the way that we think of personal consciousness. We can only think of it as a law of mind in action. We certainly could not think of it as a person itself, as we would think of an engineer, we could think of it as an engine. We could not think of it as a gardener, but we could think of it as the garden of the soul, so it has been called throughout the ages. Many of the ancient philosophies taught that the creative spirit operates upon or through a universal law whose business it is to receive the ideas and bring them into physical or objective manifestation. It is a self-evident proposition that the universe is a combination of directive intelligence and cosmic force or law and manifestation. The very fact that there is a psychosomatic or mind and body relationship is evidence that the subconscious mind principle within us is not a person but a law. It receives the impression of that which is not a law but person. For person is not law, and law is not person. Principle and person are two different things. It is evident that there is such a principle in our individual lives. We are conscious beings with subconscious reactions. The subconscious is a law operating upon that which was once conscious. There is nothing in the subconscious but what has been put there. Therefore, theoretically, there is nothing there that cannot be removed. The Greeks spoke of these two principles as eros, the creative principle, and logos, the rational principle, the knowing principle, or the word. Eros is feminine and logos is masculine. It is the word, the projective principle, the masculine, which impregnates the creative principle, which in its turn gives birth to creation. You're going to pardon me while I roll my eyes just at the feminine and masculine bit, but that's just me. So, because I have to say something because I think you heard my eyes roll. So, let me just acknowledge that, yeah, I find that a little icky, but it's like, why do we got to assign genders to things? Ugh. Okay. All right. Sorry. Let me get back to it. We find this same idea in the Bible where it speaks of the Spirit moving upon the face of the deep. The writers of the 5th, 15th, 16th, and 17th century spoke of anima mundi, or the soul of the world, as distinguished from animus deus, or the divine spirit. Animus mundi, the soul principle, was referred to by medieval writers as the universal medium of all creation. Esoterically, it was called water. Thus, the spirit operates upon the waters and land appears. Here is the idea of a universal spirit, animus dei, are operating upon a universal medium and thus producing creation. The medium, animus mundi, is impregnated by the divine ideas and gives birth to the patterns of thought which the creative spirit lets fall into it. There could be no better description of the mind-body relationship than this. Thus, provided we remember that the body-mind relationship is between a conscious and a subconscious, but intelligent principle whose business it is to reflect, as a mirror, the images that are cast into it. It is the relationship between the conscious and the subconscious, or unconscious, that we learn about the science of psychology. We affirm another principle under the heading of intuition, illumination, spiritual awareness, or God mind operating upon us from a higher level. It is this spirit-mind relationship which we call pneumatology, or the science of spirit. This is no new discovery. It is a fundamental principle of the great spiritual philosophies. Modern, medieval, and ancient, there must be, and is, a unifying spirit in the universe. This is the kingdom of heaven that Jesus talked about. This is the central theme of his instructions to his disciples and through them to the world. This is what is meant by being transformed by the renewing of the mind, but putting off the old person and putting on the new person, which is Christ. This is what is meant by Moses going up into the mountains to receive the mandate of eternal law, or Jesus going up onto the mountain to deliver the age's most famous sermon. This is the Mount of Transfiguration. Its practical meaning is that the psychosomatic relationship should be influenced by the spirit of charity, love, unity, reason, goodwill. In the science of mind, we teach not only that there is a body-mind relationship, but also that there is a direct relationship between thought and environment. Consciously or unconsciously, we are not only governing our physical bodies, we are also weaving the destiny of our fate, at least temporarily, on the loom of consciousness. Okay. But we are also weaving. It is merely a question of where we get the pattern. Shall it come from fear, strife, disunity, or shall it be drawn into our consciousness from a higher source? Pneumatology, or spirit-mind relationship, is of more importance than just body-mind relationship. For if there is a right relationship between the spirit and mind, then the mind principle, acting as law, will automatically reflect a right bodily reaction and an equally right environmental reaction. We all have a mount of transfiguration, but we do not always ascend into it. Moses said that the creative word is in our mouth. God grant that this word shall God grant that this word shall first be received from heaven, planted in the garden of the soul, watered by quiet contemplation, fertilized by hope, and cultivated through faith. It will bring forth a harvest whose planting is deeper than this earth's too thin soil. It will reach up into that pure soil of the spirit, where the flower withereth not, and the plant dieth not, because it is rooted in the living waters of everlasting life. One last deep breath, and then we are going to do the affirmation that Jesse always ends the chapters with. He offers us this affirmation. I see through all physical and mental obstructions to the one perfect presence within me. I see through all apparent contradictions to the one perfect being in every person. I see through all confusion to the one divine presence at the center of everything. And now we take a deep breath. All right, if you are following along, I am stopping because that is the end of chapter 5. But for week 5, you want to read on to page 113. I think it's the end of 113, which is part of the way into chapter 6. Yeah, you want to finish page 13. So, I'm not going to do that. I will be back at this next Saturday. So, thus ends chapter 5. What was the title of the chapter? The Meaning, Place of Science and Religion. Please forgive my absolute struggle with that article from 1938 where he was talking about psychology and consciousness and, the beginnings of human consciousness. Because, my undergraduate degree is in anthropology and archaeology, and I have read a lot. And he was just wrong enough to make me a little crazy. So, as one of the reasons why I've stayed in the science for more than 20 years now is because to a large degree, Ernest got it So right. And then every now and again, I have a bone to pick with him, and there was one of them. But what I love about Ernest's philosophy, so what I love about the Science of Mind philosophy, is it's open at the top. It is ever evolving, ever changing. So just because he wrote that does not mean it is dogma, because he objected to the concept of dogma. So, I am free to disagree with Ernest on that point, about the beginnings of consciousness. And that's the really interesting thing, is in the archaeological record, we know when we stood up. We're not sure when we became self-aware. We're not sure when the actual birth of consciousness became. But I think Ernest was trying to oversimplify it, and when he oversimplified it, he made it messy, and I did not like it. I did not like it. The rest of the chapter was amazing, but that one particular article just made me absolutely crazy. So I'm now going to get off of this after making my apologies for that one section, and because I got on this before David did, so I need to get off so that David can do this. I'll just remind you, I'll be back tomorrow morning to do the hidden power of the Bible. We started into the prodigal son, and oh my God, Ernest has amazing things to say about the prodigal son. Like, his teachings on the prodigal son are just really on point, amazing, and beautiful. So I'll see you tomorrow morning with more of the hidden power of the Bible. So take care of yourself, know that you are loved, and I will see you